Well, there we go, y'all. 41-24 victory. Should have been way worse than that. It felt like, just from watching the game, from all of the points we left behind, should have been like 60-24. Of course, we're going to dive into all of that, man. But the Commanders have some of the best returners in the NFL. And I would argue that if we had a good kicker, we may have the best special teams in the NFL as well, man. We have one of the best run games in the NFL. We got to dive into that. Mariota came in as a backup quarterback and balled out for us. Outside of that fumble, he played a very good game. We're going to do a full review. You know I'm coming in with advanced stats, and I'm trying to do something different now this season. Maybe this is how I'll do it from now on. But like the first half of the video, we kind of go through a chronological order of all of the main events, and I'll provide a lot of interesting stats there. And then the second half of the video, we break into the different position groups as well, because I feel like the flow of breaking down what happened in chronological order is far more fun. Like, this happened, and then this happened, and all of that type of stuff. So that's how we're going to start doing these review videos after games from now on. Of course, shouts out to my Watch to the End crew. Shouts out to my late night crew. Well, it's Watch to the End gang and late night crew. Shouts out to all of y'all. Shouts out to everybody that pulled up to the live stream. Everybody that donated through the super chat, through the Cash App, left likes. Shouts out to all of y'all for even just pulling up and watching the game with me and experiencing that with StreetScores. So I really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's go and dive into this video. But before we get into everything, make sure you still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, and still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notifications each and every time I release an informative and opinion video just like this one. Stay tuned for all of the content. Now, just to give you the heads up, I will not be live streaming this upcoming Falcons game, because I will be at the Falcons game, and I'm gonna try my best to, you know, meet a lot of y'all, talk to y'all, dap up, pictures, all of that type of stuff with as many people as possible, especially after the game, especially after we get that dub. So stay tuned for that. And of course, I will be live streaming every other game this season outside of the Falcons game I'm going to, and that Christmas Cowboys game I'm more than likely not streaming, because I'll probably be down bad with the itis after a huge breakfast that my family does Christmas morning. Outside of that, I got y'all covered just like I had y'all earlier today. And let's go and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, let's just go ahead and get the injuries out the way. I like to go ahead and just smoothly gloss through the injuries before we get into anything crazy. First of all, in actives, Jaden Daniels was out. He's your starting quarterback. John Bates, the best blocking tight end in all of football, out. Noah Brown, technically your outside wide receiver too, but he hasn't played that well even in games that he's played in. He was out. And then you also had other names in there that were different. Like Kane Madrano, of course, was out. That's typical. But Brandon Coleman, like, I know we talked about all week, or at least the past few days, Andrew Wiley stepping in to replace Nick Allegretti as the starting right guard. So Nick Allegretti went to the bench. Brandon Coleman went from your starting left guard to being an active, not even just a backup. So I'm really starting to think that before that game, I was telling y'all that I feel like something happened outside of football. Like maybe he was acting a fool. Maybe he threw a fit. Maybe he got into an argument or a fight with a coach. I don't know. Whatever happened, to go from starter to inactive is weird. To go from starter to bench, that could be because of play. That could be because of an injury. But started to inactive, healthy scratch, wow, bro. So that was just weird in itself. So that meant that Chris Paul got the starter left guard today. And I'm telling y'all, when y'all see these stats and hear these stats later about how well Chris Paul balled out, even though I love Brandon Coleman, and he is a third-round, second-year player. And it's weird for a guy like that to not be starting already. That is crazy, especially since he played fairly well at tackle last year. And I thought he would be even better at guard. But Chris Paul played so well. We're definitely going to have interesting conversations moving forward about who's going to be our starting left guard. And if you're talking about feeding the hot hand, Chris Paul's probably going to stay right there. But this is so Trent Scott and George Fant were active for the first time this year. Ale Cajo at linebacker was active for the first time this year. I mean, things got a little interesting, bro. Things got pretty interesting going into this game. And even Preston Smith, even though we signed him, he didn't play immediately. But I told y'all days ago from Joe Wood Jr.'s press conference, it sounded like even if Preston Smith does play, he's not going to play a lot. He ended up not playing at all. And again, Brandon Coleman inactive, nothing to do with his shoulder injury, purely just a healthy scratch. And I'm guessing it's because of his play that he got benched, but inactive is too far, bro. That has to be something non-football related. But yes, through 2 games, he has 6 quarterback pressures, 5 quarterback hurries allowed, 1 quarterback hit allowed, 31.7 pass blocking grade, and a 58.9 run blocking grade. That's not good at all. But, you know, inactive, that's, again, in a 3rd round pick, going into just your 2nd year, only 3 games into your 2nd year, that is pretty crazy, bro. Really weird. But as we got into the game, Will Harris ended up getting hurt. He kind of jogged off the field on his own, but he ended up coming back from that. But then he headed to the locker room. He came back from the locker room. He was good to go. Then that moment where Dan Quinn got ran over on the sideline was insane. He went down really hard. He hit the back of his head on the ground. He was bleeding from the bridge of his nose profusely, like they wiped it off. And then we looked away, came back, camera pan, and he's bleeding again a lot. And it's like, hey, man, this is a family program here. I know y'all advertise beer, but blood running down somebody's nose like that, I don't know if y'all want to show the camera on that. I feel like somebody in the camera crew probably got fired for that one, bro. But he said he was all right. He stayed, and man, that really galvanized the troops, bro. That really got the team going. This team already believes in Dan Quinn, but to see him take a shot like that, which some people tried to argue that it was maybe a late hit from on Marcus Mariota there that even caused him to run into Dan Quinn, but like the team really galvanized behind it. They really rallied behind it. Like Javon Kinlaw had an interview with Mitch Tisler. He cussed so much, I don't even want to show y'all the clip on this channel. Maybe somebody else can show it, but I mean, he talked about how Dan Quinn was a real gangster. This is coming from after the game, after we got the dub. Everybody's being asked about Dan Quinn, and you literally have to excuse the language, bro. He was going crazy and talking about, I mean, that's literally the spirit of the team right there. Jeremy Reeves was asked about it by Sky Abraham. He spoke to him about Dan Quinn getting knocked to the ground, and here you go. I'll show that clip because it's not as much cussing in it, but this is a perfect explanation from Jeremy Reeves as to how Dan Quinn galvanizes his team and how they rally behind a guy like him.
When your head coach goes down, bloodied in the face,
BMF.
You
I'm
take
gonna answer
what?
for you. BMF. Dog ass dude. That's how he built, man. So like you got, when he brings the standard and then he holds the standard in a live situation. Come on, man. I ain't got no excuse, tired or not, to go out there and just go play my ass off.
When you see something like that as a team collectively, how do you rally around that? How does that motivate you?
You got your coach laying it on the line, right? He's hurting. He gets drilled on the sideline, right? But he gets back up. And he's right back to it. Says a lot about the man, right? So that's important to the group. The group sees that, right? Now it's like, okay, our leader is out there doing this. Let's go.
He's always checking.
And then also shouts out to Barry's Verluga. I hope that's how you pronounce that last name. But he wrote an article right after the game trying to figure out the metaphor that defines Sunday's game. It'll hit you right across the face. I like that play on words right there. On Dan Quinn, blood and resilience, and a team that takes on its coach's attitude. And one of the major quotes from that was, Quinn has done a superior job of establishing his expectations, communicating them to this coaching staff and players, and then holding them to the standard. Sunday showed he holds himself to the very same standard as well. In a leader, how important is that? Big time. Again, you just saw it from Jeremy Reeves himself, how important that is to this team. But then continuing on with injuries, because Dan Quinn bounced back like nothing was wrong. And even like Frankie Louisville made sure that Dan Quinn got the game ball at the end. Marcus Mariota talked about it in this press conference. A lot of the different players were raving about Dan Quinn and the way that he took that hit and continued coaching on. And I really do feel like the team played with a little bit more heart and energy after that. So, hey, shouts out to the Raiders, man. That's what y'all get. But Percy Butler ended up suffering a hip injury at some point. He was questionable to return. And then Will Harris ended up leaving the game for like an ankle injury at some point also. Then Marshawn Lattimore went down. Then he walked off the field with team trainers, but that was ugly. Then Terry McLaurin was questionable to return with a quad injury on that time that he tried to stretch out for the touchdown, which was clearly a touchdown. But the refs in the NFL really just, did them bad. I don't know how that wasn't a touchdown. That was crazy. Even crazier, it was called on the field as a touchdown. The review they felt like it was conclusive enough to overturn it. It wasn't like it was called not a touchdown on the field, and then the replay was like, well, we don't see enough to overturn it back into a touchdown. No, it was a touchdown on the field. They felt like they saw enough in the replay to take it away. And to make matters worse, to pour salt into the wound, Terry McLaurin not only did not get the touchdown, but also ended up suffering a quad injury trying to stretch out for the touchdown on the play. And then Lattimore at some point was being evaluated for a concussion, and Tre'Davious Amos was dealing with a calf injury, and he was questionable to return. But then Lattimore jogged out of the tunnel and was back onto the field, still in his uniform. I guess he was good to go. But man, Jonathan Jones already went on IR last week. Will Harris is dealing with some injuries right now, and it's looking like his may be long-term. I'm going to have an update for y'all on that tomorrow, as in, Monday, September 22nd. Marshall Lattimore dealing with a concussion, Percy Butler dealing with a hip, and Trey Amos dealing with a calf, bro. Our secondary is really beat up. But now, moving on from that, let's dive into the game, especially in chronological order. First of all, just to let you know, we are 9-2 at Northwest Stadium. Ever since Adam Peters became our general manager, Josh Harris became our owner, and Dan Quinn have become our head coach, we are 9-2 at home. And Resh Manuel brings up a great point. He said it could be 11-0 if not for a missed Seibert extra point attempt and a poorly officiated decision on Zach Ertz on a 4th down against the Steelers that was most definitely a 1st down. And yes, I understand some of the wins could have easily have been losses as well, but we very easily one bad call away and one not Seibert missing an extra point away potentially to us being 11-0 and undefeated at Northwest Stadium. You know what type of aura that would have had? 9-2 is great though, but the aura we could have had where we're like, we never lose at home no matter who the opponent is, that could have been something really special. But either way, I'm happy that we're 9-2. I'll take it. But immediately to start the game, 69-yard kick return for Deebo Samuel. I mean, literally the very first play of the game before offense even touched the field. And just to let you know, he had a max speed of 23 miles per hour on that 69-yard return. So that was amazing in itself. And also, that was the longest return of Deebo Samuel's career and the longest by a Washington player since DeAndre Carter's 101-yard kickoff return touchdown in 2021. And that first drive went so well. Marcus Mariota never had to throw the ball. He dropped back to throw on the very final play, but he ended up just running for a 2-yard scramble touchdown where he reached the ball out. But it was a Deebo Samuel 69-yard kickoff return, Rodriguez 5-yard run, then Rodriguez 14-yard run, then a 4-yard run, then a 2-yard run. All by Rodriguez, mind you. Ja'Cory Cross-Camara didn't touch the field until like the 3rd drive of the game. That was pretty crazy in itself. He ended up still balling out, but I thought it was interesting that Chris Rodriguez went from inactive. They felt like they had 3 running backs when Austin Eckler was healthy enough, better than Chris Rodriguez, to the point that they didn't even play him in games. And then suddenly, the one game he's active because Austin Eckler got hurt, and of course we traded away Brian Robinson. Now he's the starting running back. I thought that was interesting, but either way, it worked out very well because he had some really good runs, which led to a Marcus Mariota 2-yard scramble. We're up 7-0 immediately. By 1:10 p.m., maybe even slightly before that, we're already up 7-0. First defensive drive, bro. 5-play touchdown drive, 0 passes, bro. That's how you want to draw it up every time. But then Matt Gay's kickoff went out of bounds to give the Raiders excellent field positioning. That was already bad. And then the first play on Raiders on offense, Geno Smith had a 45-yard throw on what looked like a miscommunication in the secondary. But they played bend but don't break defense with some great run stops from several guys like Deron Payne. Deron Payne had a great day today, man. And then Will Harris had great coverage on my Georgia dog, Brock Bowers, to prevent a touchdown throw. So shouts out to the defense, bending but not breaking. Score was 7-3 after that. Then we got another decent return from Deebo, and then Chris Rodriguez was the running back in the second drive again, but he had a nice run as well. Then Cliff Kingsbury got in his bag with like a wildcat direct snap to Deebo Samuel and went for 9. And then he almost went to the house, honestly. Like, he even looked frustrated, like, man, if I didn't get tripped up by that one last guy, I'm probably gone. And then immediately after that, we have some weird trick play design to where Mariota kept it. And then he ran by, and he got too much dip in his chip. I mean, that was like a 30-plus yard run. He ended up fumbling at the end. And while watching it live, y'all could go back to the stream. Before he even fumbled, once I saw him break loose, I was excited. But I was like, man, please, anything but fumbling. Of course, he thought he was Jaden Daniels mixed with Saquon Barkley, mixed with LaDainian Tomlinson, mixed with Barry Sanders. He tried to hurdle over somebody. Of course, he fumbled doing that. That was his only real major mistake in the entire game, I would honestly say. Of course, you could look at the all-22, nitpick him. Maybe he wasn't perfect here, he wasn't perfect there. But that was easily and by far his worst play of the game, and luckily that was an outlier. That was his only real obvious bad play. Other than that, he balled out. Then the next defensive drive, Armstrong gets a sack that led to a 3-and-out. Then back on offense, we had holding penalties from Tunsil and Connolly on the same play, like they were tethered together. Then Deebo had a drop, and then we force-fed Deebo for the next 2 plays, but I don't believe it ended up actually really going anywhere, but I just thought it was interesting. Now with Austin Eckler out, we're force-feeding Deebo in the backfield. But Then we continue to construct a really good offensive drive, but Jalen Lane dropped a touchdown pass. Mariota only, I honestly feel like he only threw that pass to Jalen Lane because he assumed he had a free play. So the refs really missed that call right there and cost us points. And then after that, Matt Gay misses a 37-yard kick, and all of us are screaming, cut him. Now, eventually throughout this game, he kind of made up for it a little bit, but I'm still like, hey, we still need to have that conversation. It may be time for Matt Gay to go. I've been saying, though, don't replace him with Younghoe Koo. I'm telling you, as the biggest Falcons hater you'll ever meet, I've been loving what Younghoe Koo was doing to the Falcons for the past couple of years and starting this season. I've loved every bit of it. Yes, Falcons, let Younghoe Koo keep selling y'all, please. You know what I'm saying? I do not want him over here with the Commanders, bro. I was rooting for him on the Falcons because I wanted him to, implode the Falcons from within, double agent type of stuff. Don't bring that stuff over here, man. Matt Gay isn't the answer. But Younghoe Koo isn't either, bro. I'm going to tell y'all that right now. But yeah, man, Jalen Lane should have caught the pass for a touchdown. Refs should have made the call. That's the only reason that Mariota even threw that pass to Jalen Lane. And then Matt Gay has to make the kick. So you got to blame Jalen Lane. You got to blame the refs. And you got to blame Matt Gay for us coming away with no points on that drive. And up to that point of that kick where he missed the 37-yarder, Matt Gay was 1 of 4 this season, including 4 of 9 if you include the preseason as well. That is absolutely insane that he still even had a job after that. I'm surprised we didn't just allow some random fan from the stands to come in and kick instead of him at that point, bro. But either way, next defensive drive, Trey Amos nearly had his first career pick, and it was a really good pass breakup. It was insane coverage, like complete lockup. He hits the ball for a pass breakup. Somehow it goes up. He's about to get it. Will Harris runs into him, and now they're both bobbling it, and it ends up being dropped instead of an interception. But man, that would have been really nice if Trey Amos could have gotten his first interception, especially not some lucky one where like the quarterback throws the ball inaccurately, it slips his hand. Maybe it's like a pressure, and he's getting hit while throwing it, and the ball just goes in the air, and all you got to do is catch it like a punt. No, Trey Amos worked for that. That was like a Darrelle Revis almost level type of interception, nearly, that he had with a pure pass breakup off of great coverage. No luck at all. Pure skill. But Bill, man, once he finally came into the game, bro, he looked like the best running back on this team by far for a second until Jeremy McNichols did what he did. And I love Chris Rodriguez, and he was having some good runs. But Bill somehow made a guy miss in the backfield, unblocked one of those plays. I can't remember what minute and second it was. It was definitely in the first half, more than likely in the second quarter, because it was like the third offensive drive, I believe, or maybe the fourth one once Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt finally got into the game. It was some top 10 running back in the NFL stuff, bro. Like nobody, I loved it. Even the Jeremy McNichols, the great play he made, nobody else in his running back room this year, last year, and I don't even remember how many years we got to go back for a guy that could have done something like that. Again, the guy basically comes through on block. He does this one jump cut, avoids him, and somehow gains 5 yards on what should have been like a 2-yard loss. Like insane stuff, bro. And so, up to a certain point in the game, by 2 p.m., Commanders versus Green Bay, 19 carries for 51 yards, and the Commanders in the first 20 minutes of the game, 14 carries, 109 yards. Like, that was insane. Like we had already more than doubled the yards that we had all Green Bay within just the first 14 carries in the first 20 minutes of the Raiders game. And mind you, the Raiders are a better run defense team than the Packers, so that just even makes me question Cliff Kingsbury even more. Like, what were you doing against the Packers as far as game plan goes? That was arguably his worst game plan I've ever seen, bro. And then Matt Gay ended up making a 46-yarder, though, to make it 10-3 with 9:56 left in the first half. So shouts out to him for at least he missed the 37, which is just absolutely inexcusable, but then he made the 46, and eventually later on he makes that really long 56-yarder, which, I mean, Pete Carroll, you got some explaining to do for icing a sorry kicker. Why would you ever ice a sorry kicker? Just let him kick. But we're gonna dive into that later, bro. But also on a 19-yard completion to Zach Ertz from Mariota, people pointed out the fact that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt did a great job of pass protection on that play. And that's what's going to allow him to stay on the field more, get more carries, be more involved. Because Cliff Kingsbury just said a few days ago in his press conference that Bill has to be better working without the ball, which means pass protection, route running, and stuff like that. And the pass protection that he had to allow Zach Ertz to end up completing that pass from Marcus Mariota sounds like Ja'Cory is already improving in that way, which should make us optimistic about Ja'Cory starting to get more reps, more touches, more snaps, and things like that in the future. I'm super excited. But again, shouts out to Matt Gay for making a 46-yarder. You know, I was surprised that he made it, but I think he's still just as good as gone. Then Genty hit a 17-yard run, and just to let you know, that was his longest run of his NFL career so far. And then he ended up hitting another run later on that was even longer. And shouts out to Quan Martin for stepping up and making a tackle. He got ran over, but at least he prevented a touchdown. I'll take it. Then Geno Smith hit a 10-yard touchdown pass to Trey Tucker, bro, and the game was somehow tied 10-10, even though we were dominating. The game should have been 30-10 at that point. It was 10-10, and I always feel weird about allowing a team to stick around score-wise, even though you're dominating them offensively and defensively. It's inexcusable. And I mean, shouts out to any of y'all that started Trey Tucker in your fantasy leagues, bro. 3 touchdowns is absolutely insane, bro. I mean, wide open. And, I mean, it just seems like we're bad in zone, bro. We're only rushing for, that's my biggest question. Like, how are we having these moments where a receiver is wide, not only just open, but wide open, and we're only rushing 4 defensive linemen and getting pressure at a relatively decent rate? Like, there's always at least somebody around the quarterback, especially around Geno Smith today, and somehow we have 7 guys in coverage, only 4 or 5 wide receivers at max out there running routes, and somehow guys are wide open. I don't know what we're doing wrong, but zone coverage right now is our biggest weakness on defense by far. Like, if you had to break up defense and the run defense, pass rushing, man coverage, zone coverage, anything that you want to, categorize defense. And right now, zone coverage is easily our biggest weakness right now. It's not good, bro. But that was a Bobby Wagner situation where it looked like maybe he passed off a player, and that's the same problem we had against the Packers where Tucker Kraft went for a big gain as well. We just can't stop guys with the name Tucker in their name. Tucker Kraft and now Trey Tucker just having career games against us. So now I need to look ahead on the schedule and make sure we don't play anybody else with the name Tucker in their name, because I'm scared. And if we do, I'm about to go and sign them all as a free agent in my fantasy teams and start them against us, because we cannot deal with guys with Tucker in their name, whether it's a first or last name. Just can't do it. But again, it was 10-10, even though we were the way better team at that point. But that's what we get for letting lesser teams stick around, and we're just hurting ourselves. I mean, honestly, the score should have been 24, even arguably 27-10 at that point. I mean, that's with 5 penalties, a fumble, and a missed field goal, and even a lost challenge from Dan Quinn. That'll do it to you. That'll do it. That'll do it. And hey, man, I'm not gonna lie. I think it was a possession or 2 later. Shouts out to Jeremy Chin for that big hit that he laid on Deebo Samuel and talked trash on the sideline. Even though I don't think it's justified, because we wanted to re-sign Jeremy Chin. It was just this weird situation where his agent, who also is Terry McLaurin's agent, hated Adam Peters so much that he didn't want to allow Jeremy Chin to even come back to the Commanders, basically. He was like signed with somebody else, anybody else but the Commanders. So it's not like we did him dirty. If anything, he did us dirty. So Jeremy Chin doesn't have the right to have that type of energy towards us on some revenge game stuff like we did him wrong at the end of the day. But at the same time, I do like that type of energy. Wrong messenger, but right message. You know what I'm saying? So I like that type of energy to, hit somebody on your former team, and then you're on the sideline with that former team. You're talking trash to everybody that's surrounding you and stuff like that. I like that. I just feel like Jeremy Chin wasn't the right guy to do it. And then the Jeremy McNichols 60-yard touchdown run, the best play by any Commander all season, bro. Broke so many tackles, outran everybody. It was insane, bro. I haven't seen a break tackle combination and run like that here since I don't remember when, bro. I mean, was that arguably the best running back play I've seen in my lifetime, maybe? I don't know, bro. And he had a top speed of 20.03 miles per hour on a 60-yard run, even though he started to slow down at the end. But at some point in that run, he reached 20 miles per hour, and he picked up 57 of those yards after over expected. He was made contact 3 yards in, somehow turned it into a 60-yard gain, bro. I mean, hey, there goes your Angry Runs week 3 winner already. So shouts out to Kyle Brandt. Make sure y'all at him, because that's already on the way, bro. And then Will Harris got hurt. And then on 3rd and 1, immediately after Will Harris got hurt, Jeremy Reeves comes into the game and made a stop on Genty to set up a 4th and 1. And shouts out to Johnny Newton, because Jeremy Reeves was the first one there, but Johnny Newton was really the one that held him up and actually stopped him from getting that first down. But so shouts out to Jeremy Reeves for being first. Johnny Newton, shouts out. But again, it was just crazy that Will Harris got hurt. First play that Jeremy Reeves comes in, immediate impact. Like, Jeremy Reeves is going to hoop, bro. If Will Harris ends up being out long term, maybe we do need to look in potentially signing a free agent off the street that's a safety. Is Justin Simmons still out there available? Maybe we could talk about that in another video tomorrow when I give y'all the official update on Will Harris once we find out more about his injury specifically. But Jeremy Reeves, not a bad replacement, bro. He may not be elite in coverage, but he gonna hit somebody. And then Bobby Wagner, shortly after that, ended up getting a sack on Geno Smith where he did a pass rush move. Like, he hit the running back with a pass rush move to get around him. That wasn't just a wide open blitz, delayed blitz. The offensive line didn't expect the type of stuff. No, he had to get past somebody with a literal, like, he did like almost like a swim move on the running back, got the sack on Geno Smith, bro. And he also had a few pressures before that play on that same drive. So Bobby Wagner was everywhere, bro. And just to let you know, that first Bobby Wagner sack, because he had 2 in the game, that was his first sack of the season and his 36th of his career. But again, he ended up having another sack later, which was his 37th of his career. And then Pete Carroll, step into my office, man. Why did you ice a bad kicker from 56 yards from making the field goal? Just why? That's what you get, Raiders. That's what you get, Pete Carroll. A 56-yarder for a bad kicker, and you give him 2 chances? Why? And then he ended up missing the first one. You iced him for who knows why, and then he makes the second one. You fully deserve that, Pete Carroll. Thanks a lot for that one. Like, actually, for real. Thank you. Shouts out to Chad Ryan. So he said, why would you ice a kicker who's always missing? That's the reverse ice. You've given him a free practice shot. That was absolutely insane. And I mean, Pete Carroll was definitely overthinking it right there. Now, at the end of the half, I had a few points that I wanted to bring up. First of all, no points in the, I mean, we should have been up 30-10 going into halftime. I'm not gonna lie, bro. That was one of my main things. Like, that was crazy how we went into halftime with the score that it was. But Bill, even though he didn't get the ball a lot, 3 carries, 22 yards for 7.3 yards per carry, just screamed, get him the ball more often. He going into the second half. Then Kevin Sheehan, he even talked about how 174 rushing yards in the half. That's ridiculous. Marcus Mariota being a threat is helping, but great job up front and by the committee of running backs, everybody contributing. Feels like the margin should be bigger score-wise. I completely agree, but mistakes, penalties, drops, missed short field goals, busted coverages had it 20-10 going into halftime. And Washington had 4 players record 20-plus rushing yards in the first half. That's the most in the first half in team history since at least the year 2000. That is insane. Also, shouts out to Tom Schaffer pointing out the fact that for all the pregame attention on Marcus Mariota starting at quarterback, the half was all about the ground game. After Washington running backs were held to 34 yards on 12 carries against Green Bay, the combination of McNichols, Rodriguez, and Bill were sitting 115 yards on 10 carries at the half, bro. What is that? Now, granted, a lot of that had to deal with Jeremy McNichols' big 60-yard run. But Bill had 7.3 yards per carry on just 3 carries. So he was balling too. And Marcus Mariota, fantastic, bro. His first half performance outside of that fumble and really his overall game performance, beautiful, bro. I mean, shouts out to Grant Paulson for pointing out the fact that he didn't have one pass that was necessarily like, wasn't pinpoint accurate. And his 3 incompletions were 2 drops and a sack that he had to throw the ball away to avoid a sack. He also ran for 41 yards and a touchdown as well, bro. I mean, that was arguably our best half of the season, ironically, which was crazy. Shouts out to Marcus Mariota. Again, at half, he only had 3 incompletions, 2 were drops by receivers, and 1 was him throwing the ball away to avoid a sack, bro. He was nearly perfect. According to him, if you're adjusting to true completion percentage type of stuff, he was perfect in the first half outside of that fumble. Then we come out, we start the game on defense because we started the game on offense the first quarter. So of course the third quarter we start on defense, and it was a great first possession by the defense, bro. Got the crowd right back into the game to force a 3-and-out immediately with a Von Miller sack to be the play on third down to force a punt. So that's the first of many for Von Miller. I was super happy to see that. It's weird for a number 24 to go get a sack, but hey, shouts out to him, bro. Then the offense came out, penalties killed our drive, and then we had a second play in the game where both Josh Connolly and Laramie Tunsil's got penalties on the same play. Are they tethered together? Is there something wrong here? If one guy gets a penalty, the other guy has to get a penalty on the same play? What was that? That happened twice in this one game where both of them, the only penalties they got were when the other one got a penalty as well on the same exact play. That was one of the weirdest things from the game that I felt like people didn't notice. Also, we were at a point where we already had a season high of 3 sacks in the game. Like, we did not go any game so far this season with 3 sacks. We already had it very soon after the second half began, early in the third quarter. And mind you, we went on to end up with, I believe, 5 total sacks on the day. So that's our season high. And Javonte Jean-Baptiste, a second-year, 7th-round rookie, stepped up big time in Dietrich Wise's place, bro. He hooped. Johnny Newton had some big run stops. You know, that's your second-year, second-rounder right there. It's kind of weird, too, because the guys that, like, we expected to contribute more. Like Jaden Daniels hurt, and he wasn't having like his best season so far. Mike Sanford has not had a great season so far. But the guys that were, from the rookie class last year that didn't play so well last year are suddenly stepping up now. Johnny Newton's having good games. Luke McCaffrey had a touchdown, and we got to talk about that. You know what I'm saying? Javonte Jean-Baptiste is a 7th round pick, is finally starting to step up. It's weird how we kind of had like a reversal. Even Jordan McGee had like a really good punt coverage tackle that could have prevented a bigger gain, a bigger return from the Raiders. Like, I don't know what's going on. Jaden hurt. I'm pretty sure he's going to come back, bounce back, and lead and go on to still end up winning MVP this season. I'm still very optimistic about that. But like Mike Sanford has been good at times, but not overall not as good as he was last year. And it's like kind of a reverse where the rookies that balled out last year struggling a little bit this year, but the rookies that struggled last year are starting to step up this year. We just need all of them on the same page. And speaking of on the same page, and speaking of rookies, instead of second year younger guys, how about these first years, bro? Jalen Lane, first ever NFL touchdown on a 90-yard punt return. And I told y'all in the first quarter that there were a couple of those returns that, like, if he just got 1 or 2 more blocks, he's going all of the way. I literally told y'all, just give him a little bit better blocking. This guy makes people miss. He forces like 1 or 2 missed tackles every return, no matter how bad the blocking is for him. As long as he gets a little bit of better blocking, he's taking it all the way. And so I was super excited to see him take it all of the way, because I was telling y'all, go back and look at the receipts in that live stream. I was saying it in the first quarter, bro. He's going to return one, bro. He just needs a little bit better blocking. He can take it the whole way. And so now that's our first punt return in 9 years. Shouts out to Matt Gay for making the actual extra point, too, because we got to thank him for those. But shouts out to him, bro. He redeemed himself for that drop touchdown that he had earlier that we talked about. And just to let you know, his 90-yard punt return touchdown is the first touchdown of his career. And, of course, Washington's first since week 5 of the 2016 season from Jamison Crowder. But I told y'all, you can go check the receipts on this as well. As soon as we drafted him, and I did my like 40-minute breakdown on him way back in late April, I told y'all he's going to be the best returner the Commanders have had at least since Brandon Banks, and he's probably going to be even better than him. So, hey, man, I mean, you're seeing it already 3 games into his rookie season. Just to let you know, speaking of rookie season, Jalen Lane is the first Washington rookie to record a punt return touchdown since Desmond Howard of September 13th, 1992. Just to let y'all know, I wasn't even born yet. I wasn't even thought of yet by then. That is insane. And that's an interesting pull right there. The name Desmond Howard, that's a name you don't really think about too often outside of college football. And also, shouts out to Ben Standig for pointing out the fact that this is the first time since September 11th, 1994, still wasn't born yet, that Washington has had both a 60-plus yard kickoff return and a 60-plus yard punt return in the same game. Since before I was born, bro. And you know what's crazy? Is that it was B. Mitch that did both of them in that same game by himself. Where we did it, it was Deebo Samuel with one and Jalen Lane with the other. B. Mitch, literally the best returner in NFL history. It's insane that he's not in the Hall of Fame right now. Even Devin Hester with his Hall of Fame speech said that B. Mitch should be in the Hall of Fame and shouted him out and stuff like that. It's insane the disrespect that he's getting. But again, we just did something today that we haven't done since before I was born, and it took 2 players to do it now. B. Mitch did it by himself back then. That is insane, bro. And also, shouts out to Chris Rodriguez, too, because he had a high IQ, high awareness play where he could have ended up having a penalty where, like, the whole out-of-bounds situation that could have wiped away Jalen Lane's punt return touchdown. Shouts out to him for having a high IQ to avoid that penalty. Also, then going back to Javonte Jean-Baptiste soon after, like the very first play after the Jalen Lane punt return touchdown, second year, 7th round pick, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who we were just talking about a couple of minutes ago, got his first sack of at least the season. I believe maybe the first one of his careers, where maybe he got one last year. He probably got one last year, but at least, I mean, his first start stepping in for Dietrich Wise and already gets a sack immediately, bro. And Dorrance Armstrong was hooping, bro. I mean, he super blew up a run by Genty, bro, where he was in the backfield before Genty even had the chance to, fully get the ball from the quarterback, and he ended up getting tackled for a big loss right there, bro. Jeremy Reeves was in the backfield as well, but that was more so a blitz. Dorrance Armstrong just straight up beat his guy. It was insane, bro. Shouts out to David Harrison. He said, Ashley Genty probably should have just went back to Boise State or transferred or gone to the USFL or something, because he is not getting any favors from his offensive line. Then, later on, with 6 minutes and 50 seconds left in the third quarter, Bobby Wagner blitzed through the middle, unblocked, and got Geno Smith for his second sack of the game, the 5th overall sack for the game. Insane stuff. So again, with that being his second sack of the game, this is the first time that he has recorded at least 2 sacks in the game since week 4 of the 2023 season, bro. He was getting active, bro. And then Jalen Lane almost took his, after he had the 90-yard punt, our defense forces a punt, and then he almost has another one that he takes to the house. He's another block or 2 away from returning that one as well, because he had like 5 or 6 guys on him. He was able to erase the angles of like 3 of them. He made like 3 guys look crazy, like they thought they had him. They underestimated his speed. He blew right by him, but then there was a couple of other guys waiting on him. Better coverage, better blocking from the punt return team. He probably runs that one back. Back-to-back punt returns for touchdowns is insane. Then on that drive, a couple of plays later on offense, Terry McLaurin, deep shot, 56-yard bomb from Marcus Mariota. And again, I'm going to really stress this, that was definitely a touchdown. It is absolutely insane that it was called a touchdown on the field, and then replay felt like they had enough evidence to overturn the call. That's the most insane part about this. But hey, even though he didn't get the touchdown, Terry McLaurin still doesn't have a touchdown in the season. Terry McLaurin has now passed wide receiver Bobby Mitchell for 5th on all-time receiving yards list in franchise history with 6,493 at that time, at the moment of that deep bomb. And I loved how the fans were chanting Terry, Terry, Terry. Even like the players were encouraging them to say it louder and stuff. Like the players were running around celebrating with Terry, hyping him up. At that point, we thought that he had a touchdown, but still, man, that's love. And it's really annoying that they didn't count that as a touchdown, because he has like a whole thing in his contract to where he gets $600,000 if he gets 10 touchdown catches this year. That's even including the playoffs. So now he needs 10 more because they didn't count that one for some crazy reason. And shouts out to Dan Quinn, because he really emphasized explosives this week going into this game. So they got a 69-yard kick return from Deebo Samuel, then a 60-yard touchdown run by Jeremy McNichols, then a 90-yard punt return touchdown by Jalen Lane, and then a 57-yard catch by Terry McLaurin that was a touchdown, but the refs hate it. And then I love the ball don't lie moment. Just a couple of plays later, Bill goes and runs for a touchdown 1 yard out. No, we're not accepting a field goal here. I would have went for it on 4th down even, just to prove that the refs really sold us right there. And then soon later on, our defense is struggling. I mean, they hit that same Tucker Kraft play that was killing us against the Packers. The Raiders ran that same play, but we ended up, Noah Igbenogany actually stopped it. He had great coverage on it. And then crazy enough, 2 plays later, they run the play back, but it's flipped and reversed, and then it works for a big gain again. So Joey Jr., I'm not going to lie, we got to figure that play out, bro. That play really had, like, our defense has not stopped it yet. The Giants ran it, and we nearly almost allowed a big play there, but Russell Wilson made the bad read and did not throw it to the guy that was more open. The Packers saw that, then they ran the play against us, and it worked for Tucker Kraft's biggest reception of the game and set them up for points. I believe they ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive as well after that big play. And then you see the Raiders do it. They try it. It doesn't work. 2 plays later, all they do is reverse it, try it again, and it does work. Joe Wood Jr., we got to get in the lab in that film room and figure out what we're going to do on this play, because teams are right now seeing that it's a weakness for our defense and they're abusing it. And then the Raiders touchdown made it 16-34 after a failed 2-point conversion attempt. And then Luke McCaffrey had a huge hole for a return and tripped on air and fell down. That made me so mad. I was like, bro, if you would have let Deebo Samuel return that's probably a touchdown. I was so mad at Luke McCaffrey. I'm so happy that he was able to make up for it later on in the game. But it was crazy too, because speaking of other people, I mean, Jalen Lane could have had 3 touchdowns. The drop, and then there was that miscommunication where like Marcus Mariota thought that Jalen Lane was running to the left, ended up being called intentional grounding because nobody was near it, where Jalen Lane actually ended up running a post route back inside. That could have been potentially a touchdown because it looked like he was probably open against the guy that was covering him if Marcus Mariota knew that. So Jalen Lane potentially could have had a 3-touchdown game today. But at a certain point in the game, shouts out to Brian Colbert Jr. for pointing out the fact that at 3:44 p.m., I'm not exactly sure how many minutes and seconds were remaining in the game, or exactly where we were, but the Commanders had more the Commanders had more yards and returns with 220 than the Raiders had total yards of offense with 178. That is absolutely ridiculous, bro. And then I don't know why we punted from the 39-yard line at like around 3:45 p.m. with a little under 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, 34-16, 4th and 20. We punt from the 39-yard line. That would have been a 56-yard attempt. I just thought it was hilarious that they just obviously knew you're not making another 56-yarder. We're not even going to try it. We're just going to punt and let our defense, win the game for us. Then a few plays later after that, All-Pro Revo had arguably the biggest hit from any Commanders player all year. 5 minutes left in the fourth, bro. That hit looked like it really hurt. That hit is competing. It was probably even better than the Nick Ballore hit that he had against the Giants week 1, bro. It was insane. And then we stopped their 4th down attempt on the next play. So Jeremy Reeves' hit not only was a big hit, but it was a very impactful hit because it stopped them from getting the first down on 3rd down. Then we stopped them on 4th down. And again, right now, our secondary injuries are just not looking good, bro. It's just the secondary's hurt, but we just got to figure it out. And then Luke McCaffrey, bro. First career touchdown, 43-yard catch and run. He had a career day, 3 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown, all in the fourth quarter, bro. I mean, some people will probably argue it was garbage time, but I'm still really happy for him, especially since the crowd started to shout. They started to shout, Luke, and I was so happy to hear that. So now, after the game, just a few more notes. First of all, shouts out to the Raider Post, because back on September 18th, they tweeted this picture. And they said, Marcus Mariota, Jaden Daniels, Marcus Daniels, it don't matter. Raiders in week 3. Oh, yeah. Okay. So now, how y'all feel about that right now, Raiders? Talk to me. Talk to me, Raiders Post specifically. How do you feel about that prediction right there? Marcus Mariota, Jaden Daniels, doesn't matter, y'all gonna win? Well, actually, you were kind of right there in a way, where it doesn't matter which quarterback it is, the Commanders are gonna win. Because Marcus Mariota played nearly as well as Jaden Daniels could have possibly played in this game. That was amazing, bro. And shouts out to Marcus Mariota. Grant Paulson pointed out the fact that Mariota has played the majority of 2 games with Cliff Kingsbury now, and the Commanders have scored 74 points in those 2 games, and this was our second 40 burger in as many as 4 quarter outings that Marcus Mariota has played, bro. That is absolutely insane, bro. That guy is different, bro. And also, I mean, we had 201 total rushing yards in this game. I feel like that's a major thing we got to point out. And I really want to remind you that the Raiders had the 4th best run defense coming into this game. So it wasn't like we just went against a team that was bad everywhere. Their run defense was their like one strong suit, and we obliterated that with 201 rush yards. Again, we had like 170 something at the half. We took our foot off the brakes in the second half, if anything. Shouts out to the Podfather too, my boys over there at the Burgundy Zone. He said the Raiders came into this game 4th in rushing yards allowed in the NFL. Washington ran for 201 yards, averaging 6.3 yards per carry, bro. So not just a lot of yards, but a very efficient amount of yards as well. The Raiders gave up 7 sacks through their first 2 games of the season. Washington had 5 in this one game as well. So we outdid that. You can argue that their offensive line was weak, but we did a better job against their offensive line, run defense, and pass rush wise than anybody else that they played so far this season. So yeah, their offensive line may be weak, but we made them look the weakest they've looked all season so far, even though it's only 3 games in. But we won this game because of the trenches. Definitely. Also, shouts out to Deron Payne, because he was your highest graded defender with a 90 grade, 90 just straight up grade. And Eddie Goldman had an 86.5 grade as well. He was your 2nd highest graded defender. Bobby Wagner was 3rd, then Noah Benogany, Dorrance Armstrong, then Trey Amos, then Johnny Newton. Then it just goes on and on and on and on. But shouts out to Deron Payne, man. He had a great day. I felt like from watching the game live, but Pro Football Focus said he was our best defensive player on the entire team, according to their grading system. Also, speaking of grading systems or guys balling out, Chris Paul, in his first start this season, first start in many seasons, took advantage of his opportunity with Brandon Coleman being inactive. He had 26 pass pro snaps. And you already know, one thing about Chris Paul, coming into this game, I knew he could run block well. The questions were, can he pass protect? Well, in 26 pass pro snaps, he had 0 pressures, 0 hurries, 0 quarterback hits, and 0 sacks allowed with an 87.8 pass pro effectiveness grade from Pro Football Focus. That is insane. And how about the run defense for the Commanders defense versus running backs through 3 weeks? Tyrone Tracy had 10 carries for 24 yards or 2.4 yards average. Josh Jacobs, he had a touchdown or 2 or something, but he still only had 84 yards rushing on 23 carries, which is a 3.7 average. And then Aston Genty, same 3.7 average with 17 carries for 63 yards. Right now, this run defense hasn't allowed anything. What we need to be worried about is this secondary right now. Shouts out to Billy Tinkle. He said the Commanders win, LMC touchdown, Packers upset by Browns, Falcons and LOL, and the Cowboys hate watch. Hey, man, what a great day. I'm not going to mention the Eagles' fake devil magic win. I'm going to go ahead and let y'all know now, it's not devil magic. It's the Georgia Bulldogs. But, you know, I've been warning y'all for years about this. People don't want to listen. Even when Howie Roseman says it. Even when, not how, their GM, whatever their GM name, my brain is all over the place right now. I'm straight Commanders. Even Jalen Hurts said it as well. Like, it's literally the Georgia Bulldogs, their culture and the plays that they make. But Jalen Carter blocks a punt. Jordan Davis blocks a punt. I don't think it's any necessarily coincidence right there. But we still have some big questions coming from this game, though. Before we even dive into individual position groups, injuries are right now my biggest concern, especially for the secondary right now. And even Terry McLaurin's banged up. Also, new kicker potentially. Are we still discussing that? Also, Jaden Daniels got to get back healthy. Specifically, we got to keep this offense going. Cliff Kingsbury, can you remember to run the ball even against good opponents and not just the bad ones? Please. Especially since it's crazy to me that the Raiders have a better run defense than the Packers, but just because the Packers are the better overall team, we abandon the run. But then you run against the fourth best run defense in the NFL and have so much success against them. So, yo, Cliff Kingsbury, get that together, bro. And now the Commanders, with the win 41-24, we face against the Falcons on the road next week. Again, I'll be at that game. We're 2-1. Let's go up 3-1 on those boys. But now, before we start to dive into individual position groups to highlight some of the good and the bad from those guys specifically, and not just the overall chronological run through of the game, shouts out to Sleeper, man. And it feels good after a win to talk about some fantasy football, right? And with Sleeper, you have a chance to 1,000 times your cash on daily fantasy football. And some of the fantasy picks that I made, like Marcus Mariota throwing for over 200 yards, that ended up working out. So keep in mind with Sleeper, you can have fun with guys like Jaden Daniels when he returns. Terry McLaurin, he's eventually got to break for a touchdown. And Deebo Samuel's high usage rate, I think that continues, man. You can have fun and play fantasy with all of the Commanders' elite players. You can pick on stats like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, fantasy points, and for up to 1,000 times payout on Sleeper, saying that if you put in 5, you can win 5,000 depending on how you play it. You can win big money-uns with your pick if you're right, and you can use promo code SCORE like you see on the screen. That's SCORE. And you can get up to $100 match on your first deposit. You can even click the link at the top of the description of this video and every video on live stream I'm doing all season and including the postseason as well. And it's just not the Commanders in the NFL. When the NBA returns, you can have fun with that. MLB, NHL, college football, college basketball, and the WNBA, man. And just to take a quick look real quick, things didn't work out so well this week, man. Things did not work out so well, bro. Because, like, I mean, Carson Wentz didn't reach his 200 yards that he was supposed to get. And then, I mean, it's just, man, it was just a bad day, bro. Because even, like, say, Jonnu Smith was one catch away. Carson Wentz, now, I just thought he would just throw the ball everywhere. I didn't expect the Vikings to end up winning, like, 48-10. If he would have thrown the ball more, I could have hit with that. And then Kevin Byard just happened to have an all-star game of tackles, bro. Like, come on, man. Like, I'm trying to look at the game log. I had the game log up before I made this pick. He had not reached 6 tackles all season, but yet he wants to pick against the Dallas Cowboys to finally do it or whatever. And shouts out to the Cowboys for losing 31-14 to a team that couldn't beat anybody. So the Cowboys look like one of the worst teams in the NFL. But man, I really feel like, I mean, again, Mariota hit, Alex Pierce hit, Chris Olave hit. I just got to go back to the drawing board. I really think I could turn, I turned 10 in the 800 the first week. I think I can do that again, bro. So stay with me, man. Shouts out to Sleeper. Hey, man, I just got to blame Aaron Rodgers for not throwing the ball to Jonnu Smith one more time. I got to blame, really, honestly, the Cincinnati Bengals defense for allowing them to get beat so bad. Really, their offense, too, because the 2 pick sixes, I mean, it just made it to where Carson Wentz didn't even have to throw the ball. He had a good amount of yards at halftime. Honestly, I think the yards he had at halftime, if he would have just doubled it in the second half, he would have just did the same thing he did in the first half in the second half, we would have went over on that. But shouts out to the Bengals offense and defense for being so bad to the point that Carson Wentz didn't even have to throw the ball to win 48-10. And then Kevin Byard, man, we just got unlucky with that one. But other than that, man, we almost did it. We almost hit this one, bro. So we're going to keep trying. Shouts out to Sleeper. Again, you can use promo code SCORE. And yeah, man, let's go ahead and get back to this video, man. We got a lot more to break down, especially every individual position group, bro. Let's get it. All right, so starting with the offense, specifically the offensive coordinator, I do want to point out the fact that Washington 40-point games just since 2024, since Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, and Adam Peters came here, we've already had 5. How about it took us from years 2014 to 2023 to have 5? It took us a year and 3 games to do 5 since Cliff Kingsbury's been here. It took us over 9 years to get 5 before Cliff Kingsbury got here. That is absolutely insane, bro. That is ridiculous. Also, shouts out to Grant Paulson. He said, Cliff Kingsbury was excellent today. Plan was great. Play calling was terrific. Took Patrick Graham's lunch. He was just in his bag all day. The Wildcat with Debo, the shot he set up to Terry, the read option he got going with Mariota. He was missing his QB1, his elite blocking tight end, his wide receiver 2, and with 2 new starters on the offensive line and put on a clinic. That's the type of game that gets you another head coaching gig. That's a great point too. But shouts out to Marshall. He brings up a great point as well. He said, would have loved to have seen what the Green Bay game would have looked like if they came out in the formations they did today and made them defend the run. I completely agree. They made things so hard on Jaden Daniels for no reason, not running the ball. Cliff Kingsbury, I don't know what you did against the Packers, but that was one of your worst games, and then you had one of your best games against the Raiders today, and I don't feel like it's a coincidence that we lost one game embarrassingly, and then we embarrassed the other team just because Cliff Kingsbury was finally on point. I feel like it was more of a Cliff Kingsbury thing than Marcus Mariota, honestly. Marcus Mariota balled out, and he played well, but that was Cliff Kingsbury. I blame him for the majority of the loss against the Packers, bro. And Marshall even brings up a great point, too. He said, we still may have lost against the Green Bay Packers, but it definitely would have looked way different if Cliff Kingsbury just ran the ball, bro. And shouts out to Jahan OPOY. He brings up a good point. He said it took for Jaden to get hurt for Cliff Kingsbury to finally realize that we have a really good run game. I don't know what it took so long for, but at least we got it going. So when Jaden Daniels comes back, keep that going. Don't stop running the ball, bro. Please, please, Cliff Kingsbury. Now moving on to quarterbacks. Of course, Marcus Mariota. He had rushed for a 2-yard touchdown. That was his 19th career rushing touchdown. Just wanted to update y'all on that. Also, John Kahn pointed out the fact that players said this week that Mariota was a good fit for this offense because of how quick he gets rid of the ball, his ability to operate the quick game in the RPOs, and you saw the proof was in the pudding. Galdi also said Marcus Mariota was very good in wins over Carolina and at Dallas last season and was very good in this win over Las Vegas. He has delivered big time whenever called upon with the Commanders, and he's a great teammate who brings no drama. That's really important, and also the perfect backup quarterback, especially for this system. Then shouts out to Mitch Tisler. He said, as you look around the NFL at some of these backup quarterback performances, consider this as a Marcus Mariota appreciation post, because a lot of these backup quarterbacks out there are terrible. We are lucky to have Mariota, bro. In parts of 4 games for the Commanders, 18 drives, 8 touchdowns, 5 field goals. So out of the 18 drives, he's been the quarterback for the Commanders. We have scored points on 13 of them. We punted twice. 1 ended the game to where on purpose we didn't score. So you honestly can't even count that one. So honestly, you would say 13 out of 17 drives, Marcus Mariota has scored. 2 punts, 1 turnover that was a fumble on him. That's his fault. And then a missed field goal, a 37-yarder. So that should have been another one. That should be 14 out of 17 drives that Marcus Mariota has led this team to scoring drives, with 8 of them being touchdowns whenever he's been our quarterback. That is absolutely insane, bro. And shouts out to Rush Manuel for pointing out the fact that Sam Fortier, he wrote a piece recently following Marcus Mariota's first win as an NFL starting quarterback in nearly 3 years. First of all, just to let you know, that's what happened today. This was Marcus Mariota's first time winning a game as a starting quarterback in 3 years. And Sam Fortier broke down the mental and emotional journey that Mariota had to get through just to make it to today. I mean, the quote comes from the post that Mariota said, quote, it was almost like that anxiety about getting injured never really goes away. It just kind of finds somewhere else to go. Because I got hurt, that invincible feeling that most athletes have wasn't there for me anymore. I didn't feel powerful in my own body. So I was like, okay, what do I have to kind of try to do to be effective as a quarterback, unquote. And then Mariota suspected that led to him put extreme pressure on himself to be perfect on every snap. And he said that pressure short-circuited him to where he wasn't even confident and he wasn't seeing what he was supposed to be seeing. He was missing throws that he normally didn't, and he suspected those struggles fed on to something deeper, and he ended up having to get like therapy over that stuff. So I want to remind y'all that as well as Marcus Mariota played today, remember his journey from how bad the Falcons pretty much did him. Like the Falcons, he was on the Falcons when he went through all of that emotional distress, and now look what he's doing for us. So that was amazing. Also, shouts out to Burgundy Blog. He brought up a great point. He said it helped a lot that the run game was clicking, but man, I feel great about Marcus Mariota. He just shows up, and not just today, really every appearance for us. Good decisions, good accuracy, good mobility. In fact, read option is a weapon, and do not rush Jaden out of desperation. But at the same time, Shelly brings up a great point, and I feel like a lot of people need to hear this. I don't know why, but I saw some comments in my live chat. Jaden Daniels is the future of this team. Absolutely no question. If he needs a game or two, it's so nice knowing that we have a great backup quarterback in Marcus Mariota, but this is Jaden Daniels' team without a doubt. Now moving on to the running back. Shouts out to Bill, man. He pulled up in a Sean Taylor jersey. I thought he was about to get 20 carries for 100 and something yards. But again, he didn't step onto that field until the third offensive drive. Not even once. It was Chris Rodriguez's team the first couple of drives. But Chris Rodriguez also, after the game, speaking to him, he said, quote, "We got some boys in the backfield. We can do everything. We can all do a little bit of everything," and that's why this offense is probably so deadly, because when any of these running backs are on the field, it doesn't automatically show the opposing defense what we planning on doing. Jeremy McNichols can even catch a pass out of the backfield. JCM can do everything. Bill can do everything. Jeremy McNichols, you saw what he did. Deebo Samuel even out of the backfield. Your quarterback out of the backfield. I mean, just to let you know, rushing yards wise, Jeremy McNichols led the team in yards with 78 with a touchdown on 4 carries. Marcus Mariota has 6 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. Chris Rodriguez had 11 carries, the most in the game, with 39 yards. Bill had 8 carries for 26 yards and a touchdown. And Deebo Samuel had 3 carries for 18 yards, bro. The diversity of the run game is absolutely insane, to where you have 3 running backs that are all contributing like that. And then you also have a wide receiver and a quarterback that can do that as well. Can't wait for Jaden Daniels to be a part of this run game that Cliff Kingsbury is calling right now. Now moving on to the receivers. I thought it was really cool that Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane both had touchdowns in the same game, bro. I mean, again, Jalen Lane could have had 3. 1 as a returner, 2 as a receiver, but it is what it is. But the fact that he can impact special teams so heavily that much as a returner until he starts to become an effective and consistent wide receiver, that's what makes him so dangerous, because even before he becomes that receiver that we hope he becomes, he's still just as deadly in the return game, bro. And also, just like Bill's first touchdown, shouts out to Terry McLaurin, man. He went and made sure he secured the first touchdown balls and made sure that he got them to both of those guys. Bill, when he got his first touchdown run against the Giants, Terry McLaurin was the one that went and retrieved the ball and got it to him. Same thing with Jalen Lane on his punt return. That is like fantastic stuff from Terry McLaurin to do that. Because honestly, even just shout out to the fans as well that give the ball back, because they don't have to. That's big love for them to even do that. So I really hope the Commanders find those fans, find out who they are, and make sure they get some great stuff in return for just simply being great-hearted people, bro. Honestly. But again, shouts out to Terry McLaurin for making sure he gets the first touchdown balls for everybody that had them, bro. Luke McCaffrey and Bill back in week 1 against the Giants. Also, Chris Moore been hooping, bro. Shouts out to Marshall. He brings up a great point that Chris Moore seems more like a gamer than a practice guy, because he's been good in games. He's terrible again in the preseason. Pretty bad from what I was hearing and seeing in practices. He gets in the games and balls out. Man, that guy not only had a couple of good catches today, but he also had a really good punt return tackle. Like on punt coverage, he went down there and he was like the gunner on the play and made a good tackle. So shouts out to Chris Moore contributing however he can. And speaking of wide receivers, Terry McLaurin finished the game, most yards on the team. I love to hear that. 3 receptions, 74 yards. Luke McCaffrey, 3 receptions, 56 yards and a touchdown. Honestly, Terry McLaurin should have done more than that. They had Kiyu Blue Kelly out there one-on-one with Terry, no safety help. I feel like I love Marcus Mariota, but Jaden Daniels in the game, I feel like we take advantage of that just a little bit more. Zach Ertz had 3 catches for 38 yards. I thought he had more receptions and yards than that. It felt like he did, but Chris Moore had 2 catches, 25 yards. Deebo Samuel 2 catches for 11. Bill had 1 catch for 5 where he made a couple of guys miss, and Jalen Lane technically had 1 catch for -2 yards on a slant. Tight end wise, hey man, Ben Sinnott stepped up. I know it sucks not having the best blocking tight end in all the football in John Bates, but Ben Sinnott stepped up pretty big. Like on one of those big Marcus Mariota runs, Ben Sinnott was the one that had the key block that allowed it to go. So shouts out to Ben Sinnott. And also, again, I felt like Zach Ertz had more than just 3 receptions. It felt like he was open every time we needed him, but that's why Zach Ertz is here. Gotta love him for that. Then offensive line wise, Dan Quinn said that the changes at the offensive line were about competition, and he wasn't making any statement or trying to send any message with Brandon Coleman being inactive. That's interesting. But Chris Paul did say that he knew at the beginning of the week that he'd be playing. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. A little fishy, but either way, worked out very well because Chris Paul balled out in place of Brandon Coleman. Now going to the defensive side of the ball, starting with the bad news. I mean, I agree with Eric Sully right here. I mean, Washington is one of only 4 teams to not yet have a defensive takeaway through 3 games. Quinn stressed this as an area that they like to improve on from last year, but so far, nothing. Definitely got to be better there, especially if you want to go deep into the playoffs. You got to learn how to force turnovers. But then the good news defensively. I mean, it felt like all game, it was like, how did Geno Smith get out of that? We had 5 sacks. It really felt like we should have had like 12 or 15. It was insane how many times Geno Smith got out from somebody literally had like having a hold of his jersey. I mean, some of those times he escaped, you couldn't even see Geno Smith. You just saw the defensive line and the offensive line like around him. He's bottled up. Somehow he pops out of it. So that was kind of annoying, but at least they were getting consistent pressure on him. And again, most of the time we were only rushing 4 guys. So our defense looked more like that Giants game than that Packers game because of that alone. Also, Raiders running back Aston Genty was hit at or behind the line of scrimmage on 11 of his 17 runs today. That is elite run defense, y'all. Genty has now been hit or at or behind the line of scrimmage on 57% of his runs this year, 27 to 47, and just to let you know, I think that's the best that any team has done against him this year. He already had a bad first couple of games. You could argue he even had a worse one today, just ultimately as far as how often he got hit at or behind the line of scrimmage. Then defensive line-wise, Dorrance Armstrong now joins Matt Ioannidis, that's a name to remember, and Preston Smith, who we just re-signed a few days ago, as the 3rd player in all of franchise history to start a season with at least 1 sack in each of the first 3 games. Dorrance Armstrong, even though Preston Smith and Matt Ioannidis kind of fizzled out towards the end, they didn't have historical seasons, but right now, Dorrance Armstrong is on pace for a 17-sack regular season, bro. I hope he gets it, bro. I really do. Also, shouts out to Nicky Javala for bringing up the fact that Von Miller reprised an old sack dance against the Raiders. He said, quote, after the game, I was watching highlights from my old days with the Broncos and facing the Raiders, and that was one of the sack dances that I did back then. It was a throwback. I think it was like 2019. Shouts out to Von Miller for even think to do research on that. Like, okay, I haven't played the Raiders in a while. Now that I'm playing the Raiders, what's a dance that I did after a sack I got against them? Let me make sure I have that ready to recreate that if I get a sack against them. Then he went out there to get one. So I love that random motivation he had in the back of his mind. Also, you could argue that Bobby Wagner was probably the defensive player of the game. Even though Daron Payne was great at the highest Pro Football Focus, Bobby Wagner had 11 tackles and 2 sacks, bro, against his former head coach, bro. Come on, man. That is insane, bro. Then going on to the corners, Trenavian Amos, 1 target, 0 receptions allowed. Again, he had that 1 pass breakup that almost led to an interception. And then the Raiders and Geno Smith were just like, all right, I guess we're never going to throw the ball his way ever again in this game. I thought that was fantastic. Also, safety-wise, it sucks that Will Harris got hurt because that breakup on the Brock Bowers touchdown could have changed the entire game. The game could have been 7-7 instead of 7-3. And at one point, I believe the game was like 10-10. So honestly, we could have been down 14-10 at one point if Will Harris didn't make that play. So thank you for that, man. Get well soon. Prayers to you. Then special teams wise, I love the fact that after the game, Jalen Lane said, quote, I just need 1 lane and I'll make the rest happen, unquote. I don't know if people noticed, but that was kind of like a play on word. You know what I'm saying? His last name is Lane, and all he said is that he needs 1 of them. He just needs 1 lane. And I'm saying that as well. I'm like, all we need is 1 Jalen Lane. He's talking about all we need is 1 lane. So I like that right there. I thought that was pretty cool. Also, man, Deebo Samuel's going to get him one this year, at least 1. He's well on his way. His returns have progressively gotten better and better and further every week. Against the Giants, he had like a 20 or 30-something yarder. Against the Packers, he had like a 40 or 50 yarder. And then he hit off for like a 60 yarder today, bro. I'm telling you, he's going to get on one. He had a 69 yarder today, bro. It's on the way. And I agree with Commander's Realm. We would honestly have the best special teams unit in the entire NFL if we just had a dependable field goal kicker. Tressway is arguably one of the best punters. Deebo Samuel looks like one of the best kick returners. Jalen Lane already as a rookie in his 3rd game of his NFL career already looks like one of the best punt returners in the NFL. Literally, if we had a consistent field goal kicker, we would have the best special teams unit in the entire NFL, because even the Gunners, All-Pro Revo, Tyler Owens, even Chris Moore getting in on it, Nick Ballore, like we have so many guys. Percy Butler can go down there and lay a hit, bro. We are ready for everything. Then shouts out to Commander's Realm. His overall thoughts in the win versus the Raiders, just to kind of run down some of the opinions that and other points that the people brought up as far as like an overall review of the game. He said, gonna start by giving Mariota props. Raiders or not, he's shown multiple times he's one of the best, if not the best, most dependable backups in the NFL. Also, Matt Gay had a miss from inside 50. It was actually a 37-yarder. Just to remember, don't say within 50. Let's emphasize 37-yard field goal missed, followed by another miss that was saved by the attempted icing. He also kicked one out of bounds. Oh yeah, that kickoff that he kicked out of bounds that gave the Raiders great field position on their first offensive drive. Insane. It would be a joke if they don't at least bring in some competition for him. I agree. Also, they had over 200 yards on the ground without their 2 starting runners and Jaden Daniels and Austin Eckler. Technically, that makes sense. That makes everything even easier. I thought Will Harris was having a redemption game after last week, but I wouldn't mind seeing more reads in his spot going forward. But again, Will Harris got got hurt, so you're probably just going to have to by force. Also, a ton of secondary injuries. Lattimore and Amos again. This is why the corner depth was important. And Jonathan Jones is already on IR. Now we need Noah Benogany to potentially step up. Now we need another safety to step up. So thank goodness we didn't trade Noah Benogany like some people wanted to a few weeks ago. Also, Connolly and the new offensive line combo held up decently, but there was still some penalties that killed some drives. But Mariota can't make up the 2nd and 20s like Jaden can. And that's a great point. That's a big distinction between why Jaden Daniels is a starting quarterback over Mariota. When it's 2nd and 20, Jaden can get that back. Mariota can't. That's over with. That's why we do run plays on 3rd and long with Mariota. With Jaden Daniels, we typically try to let him have the ball in his hands and see what he can do with it. Also, run defense continues to be stout. I agree. McNichols needs more touches. I mean, hey, it's hard to argue against that. I feel like Bill needs more touches, but it's hard to argue against that when he ran that well today. Also, Lane has struggled with drops, but he's the most dangerous punt returner they had in 15 years. I completely agree with that. I love Debo and kickoffs. I do too. I need Quinn to be smarter with timeouts. He has been pretty bad with those this season, but at least today was less bad than the other previous 2 games. Also, they need to take more shots on offense. I completely agree. The one that Terry was perfect. I think he scored. I agree as well. That was definitely a touchdown. Let's hope the quad isn't a nagging injury, please. And then also on to Atlanta. Potentially Kirk Cousins. Hopefully Jaden and the others can go. I mean, remember, I don't know if y'all know, but Michael Penix ended up getting benched, y'all. In that, I think they lost to the Panthers, what, 28-0, 30-0, something insane, bro. How do you lose to the Panthers that bad? They're arguably the worst team in the NFL. Does that make the Falcons the worst team in the NFL? But the way that they just did the Vikings the week before, I thought, I mean, maybe now that means the Vikings are the worst team in the NFL. Then the Vikings with Carson Wentz, even though the Bengals had their backup quarterback as well, just beat the Bengals 48-10. Maybe the Bengals are the worst team in the NFL. I don't know how this is working, but all I know is even if Michael Penix does play after getting benched because he was that bad, it wasn't because of an injury, it was because he was that bad in the game, throwing pick sixes and all. I know we better go to Atlanta and get this dub. I know we better. And then shouts out to Commander's Muse. He tweeted the top 5 plays versus the Raiders. He said, number 1, the McNichols touchdown run where he broke multiple tackles. I agree. Number 2, the Jalen Lane 90-yard punt return touchdown. Number 3, Mariota deep bomb to Terry McLaurin for a 56-yard gain was supposed to be a touchdown. Debo Samuel kickoff return for 69 yards, the very first play of the game, and then Luke McCaffrey scoring his first touchdown. I like that list. I like that. Also, Bobby Gold brought up a good point. How on earth did the Browns beat the Packers? Because I refuse to believe we're worse than the Browns. We were better than the Browns last year, and I feel like we're better this year than we were last year. So I don't get it. I just feel like, again, we just got out coached severely. I feel like rematch, playoffs, I think we beat the Packers, bro. I think we're a way better team than people think, especially even in our fan base. I just think we came with the worst game we've ever had. I think we came in bad game plan. I feel like being Thursday night on the road, I feel like we were set up for failure. Refs kind of cheated us out of some plays and some points. It just is what it is. I'm not afraid of the Packers. I'm not afraid of any team in the NFL. Also, shouts out to Rio Robinson because he brings up a great point. He said, we're scoring 50 on Dallas with 5 or 8. Doesn't matter. We're scoring 50, bro. The Dallas Cowboys defense is food. Didn't the Giants score 37 against them last week? And then the Chicago Bears, who couldn't do nothing on offense the first 2 weeks of football, went out there and exploded offensively versus the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, yes, we're going to feast upon those boys, man. They won't be able to stop our run game nor passing game. Dallas Cowboys, y'all better be afraid when we finally play y'all, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you about everything discussed video. Please to farm that like button, to farm the subscription button, to farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. And more, now more than ever, bro, super duper shout out to the Watch to the End gang, man. For y'all to watch to the end on a 1 hour, right now I'm recording this 1 hour and 7-minute video. You watched all the way to the end. You're still watching me and hearing me right now. I really salute you and appreciate you personally, man. Shouts out to my Watch to the End gang. Right now it's 11:57 p.m. as I'm nearing the end of recording this video. So shouts out to my late night crew as well by the time y'all even get the chance to see this. Really appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all leave a like on the way out. And of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about this game. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points, but also provide any extra points that I may have missed. I've only had the chance to watch the game live while live streaming with y'all, so I'm also going back and forth with the chat. I probably missed some things in the game because of that alone. Also, I rewatched the highlights after the game because, again, I like to at least rewatch some of the highlights before I start talking about the game in a review video like this one, so that's why it takes me a couple of hours. But I haven't had the chance to watch all 22 and stuff like that, so let me know if there's anything that I maybe missed. I'm only one guy, so let me know if I'm wrong about something. Let me know whatever additional points that I didn't bring up that you feel like deserve to be brought up as far as who played well, who didn't, all of that type type of stuff, man. So I really appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all still follow that like button on the way out. Shouts out to my watch to the end gang. Shouts out to my late night crew. I'm gonna catch y'all later on. I guess you can say today. I'm gonna come out with another video Monday, September 22nd at some point. So stay tuned for that. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.